In this week's video, we're going to talk about how to use the 80-20 rule to achieve superior fat loss, muscle growth, and long-term health. My name is Ryan Treadaway, founder of TreadawayTraining.com, where we help busy professionals get more results in less time through online training. Every week, we talk about nutrition, training, habit formation, all the things that go into getting your dream body. So if that's something that you're interested in, consider subscribing and getting more content just like this. Now let's get into today's topic. What is the 80-20 rule? The 80-20 rule simply means that 80% of your food intake should come from whole or minimally processed foods. And those are going to be your lean meats, nuts, seeds, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, dairy, eggs, all of those type of things. All of the things that you would typically consider to be healthy foods. And then the other 20% of your calories can come from wherever you want them to. It can be, any kind of junk food, whatever you enjoy eating. The other 20% of your calories can come from those food sources. And this is beneficial from a health perspective as well as a habit formation perspective. So let's talk about the health perspective first. The easiest way to explain it is to compare it to a budget. So let's say after taxes, you take home $2,000 a month, just for a nice, easy round number. Now let's say by the time you pay your mortgage, you pay your light bill, you pay your phone bill, your gas, you buy clothes, you buy food, all of these other things that are necessities, you have $400 left at the end. That's 20% of your budget. So this $400 you can spend on whatever you want, and there's really not going to be any consequence because you have all of your bases covered for your necessities already. You've already paid your mortgage, your light bill, all those other things. And so you can spend this extra on whatever you want. You can go out to a nice restaurant. You can go on a short trip. You can buy a video game console. You can pay for a course to take. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. It's completely up to you. You can do whatever you want with this extra wiggle room in the budget. Now, the problem would be if you start spending more than that $400. So let's say you spend $600. Well, there's something that's not getting paid for. If you are paying $600 on fun stuff, there's $200 of something. You're not paying your light bill, or you're not paying your water bill, or you're not making the full mortgage payment. There's something that's having to give because you've spent too much money on fun stuff. And it's a similar thing when it comes to your calorie budget. So let's say you get 2,000 calories. Now, if you eat 80% of that, so 1,600 calories of that 2,000 a day from these whole food sources like we've already talked about, at that point, you're going to have your micronutrient bases covered most likely. You'll be able to get plenty of protein, plenty of fiber from that 1,600 calories. But the issue is if you start eating too much junk food, so let's say you eat 1,000 calories worth of junk food and 1,000 calories worth of whole or minimally processed food, that's where you start getting into an issue, because at that point, you're not getting enough micronutrient dense foods. You're probably skimping out on some fiber. You might not be hitting your protein target. That's where your health issues come into play. You're not eating foods to properly fuel your body for the long term, and you're going to eventually run into issues. So you might think, well, if we're spending 80% of our calories on micronutrient dense whole or minimally processed foods, and that's good, wouldn't it be better to go ahead and spend 85, 90, 95, or 100% of your calories on these micronutrient dense foods? And, well, yes, you're probably right. The issue becomes adherence. If you're eating a poor quality diet and somebody tells you to throw away all of your Little Debbie cakes, all of your chips, all of your ice cream, all of the things that you like to eat, and then they'd say you can only have these fruits, veggies, lean meats, and things like that, you might be able to stick to it for a little while, maybe. But eventually your willpower reserves are going to run dry, and then you're just going to quit altogether, and you're going to go back to the way you were eating previously. The way the 80-20 rule comes in to save the day here is if you are eating 80% of your calories from whole food sources and you're saving that other 20% and you get to eat whatever you want with that 20%, it saves your willpower. It allows you to stick to this lifestyle long term because you're still able to have a Little Debbie snack cake, or you're still able to have ice cream or chips or French fries or a milkshake, whatever your food of choice is for your fun foods, you still get to have those. So it's not a constant drain on your willpower reserves until you just give up entirely and say, forget this, I hate this, I'm just going to go back to what I was doing before, and then you eat all the things that were off limits previously. Because you have to take into consideration the fact that mental momentum is every bit as real as physical momentum. We want to continue going in the exact same direction that we've been going. Humans do not like to change things. So think about if you're going down the road and there's an ever so slight curve in the road. You can keep going full speed, no problem. You don't have to slow down. You can just keep heading on. You take the small curve and you're good to go. Now, let's say you come up on a slightly larger curve. You can probably maintain your speed depending on how fast you're going and not have to slow down. Now, let's say you come up on a 90-degree turn. Well, you're going to have to slow down considerably in order to make that turn. And then lastly, let's think about a 180-degree, a hairpin turn. You're going to have to slow down pretty much to a stop before you can turn around and go the other direction, unless you're some kind of stunt driver, which is probably not anybody listening to this video. But the moral of that story is, the more drastic the change, the more difficult it is to make that change. So we don't want to make a 180-degree hairpin turn when it comes to the diet. That's asking to fail. There's a thing known as minimum effective dose. And essentially what that is we want to make the smallest change possible that can get us going in the direction we want to go. And that's going to help us to stick to the change that we've made. So in other words, we don't want to go on that hairpin turn. We want to go on that ever so slight curve that's going to eventually loop back around and get us to where we want to go. So how do we apply this in real life? Well, let's say maybe you look at your diet and you say, well, goodness, I'm eating 80% junk food and 20% whole foods. Well, maybe instead of aiming for 80-20, you should aim for 70-30, where the 70% is the junk food and the 30% is the whole food. Because remember, we want to make a slight change that gets us going in the right direction. So that's still better than what you were sticking to. Then maybe you get used to that, and then you go 60-40, where the 60 is the junk food, and then eventually 50-50, and then eventually 60-40, where 60 is the whole food. And then boom, 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 keep going until eventually somewhere down the road, you are eating 80-20, where the 80 is the whole food and then the 20 is the junk food. And so then at that point, you just stop and hold at that place, and you're still getting some of that junk food that you like, that you enjoy eating. You're still getting your ice cream or your French fries or whatever it is that you like. Personally, mine is ice cream. In case you haven't noticed, I've mentioned it in every example so far. So at that point, you're still getting your junk food. You're still getting that thing that you find enjoyable in your diet, and you don't feel like you're having to deprive yourself in order to get to your goal physique. You're able to obtain the body that you are looking for, while at the same time implementing these baby step habits along the way to get you there. And not only are you able to achieve the body that you're looking for, you are able to do it in a way that also ensures your long-term health, which is obviously very important. But keep in mind, you do need to be hitting an appropriate calorie target for your goal, which is exactly what we talked about in Sunday's blogcast. So I will put that link as the first link down in the description. And there is a calorie calculator to estimate about what you need to be eating inside of that article as well. So make sure to check that out next. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast episode. If you found it informative or entertaining and you want to help the channel grow, simply hit that thumbs up button. That is the best thing you could possibly do to help out the channel. If you want to get more content just like this, then make sure to hit the subscribe button and head over to treadawaytraining.com/blog, where we put up a new blogcast every Sunday at 3 p.m. Central. As always, God bless you and your family, and I'll see you Sunday.